She's the founder of a media company you might be familiar with, Betches Media. What started off as a blog over a decade ago has now turned into a multi-million-dollar brand. Sami Sage is bringing us back to the early days of Betches and sharing how the women behind it have created an indomitable presence in the podcasting space. This is Advocate Now. Sami, we're so excited to talk to you today. And Betches started off as a blog. You pretty much built a media empire around it over the past decade. How did it all first start?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here. Like you said, we started as a blog. My two other co-founders and I have been friends since childhood. We were in college together. And honestly, like you said, we had started as a blog. Ultimately, we just really wanted to it was kind of like a fun project that ultimately went viral. But what we were looking to do with that was really find a way to communicate through humor, and basically like satirize kind of the behaviors and idiosyncrasies of what people now refer to as, the millennial woman. But that was kind of before, she had kind of earned her, you know, thought piece status.
Yeah, and you're one of the first and only media companies founded and run by women that's funny, real, and honest. Was your intention and vision from the beginning for it to kind of take on a life of its own and be this massive? Or like you said, was it just kind of a fun project?
No, it was really, when we first started, just a fun project. But then pretty quickly we saw how much people related to it, people from all over the country. And we had thought we were just kind of writing for, our immediate demographic, but we saw pretty quickly how people resonated with it. And because we were anonymous at first, a lot of people thought they were just reading something that their best friend wrote. So yeah, I mean, after that, we saw that there was so much potential for it to go way further than that.
And since then, you've branched off, you've been dominating the podcasting world. Did you always know that humor would be at the center of your brands?
Yeah, that was definitely sort of our key thing that we have always worked to maintain. The voice is what we've always focused on, building brand equity through the years, through using humor, relatability, even when that wasn't necessarily what people were striving for. Like in the early days of Instagram, it was very image centric, and now we're really working to really help people kind of deal with life's ups and downs through humor.
It would be such a dream for so many people to launch a brand or a business, any kind of venture and have it reach this level of success. So what do you think differentiates you from companies that either don't succeed or stay small? What would you say that your secret has been?
I mean, I think it's honestly a combination of factors. One thing is that we are completely self-funded. So the three of us have been able to build, slowly and steadily, and, with a pretty lean and nimble team. That's really the flip side of it, is that you can be really adaptable, especially in an industry where the platforms change, honestly, on a regular basis. And then, the three of us just at our foundation have been friends for almost, our whole lives. So I think, when you think about a lot of women's media, a lot of it isn't even owned by women. But this is Betches is a company that, was founded in friendship. And I think that is sort of something that's inextricable from our brand voice and the way that we aim to create a culture internally. And I think that has really helped set us apart in the women's media space.
And through the evolution of Betches, you've entered the political space. You have the Sup podcast and morning announcements podcast diving into political and daily news with comedic commentary. What made you want to focus on politics?
Well, for me, it's always been a personal interest. So part of that is, satisfying something that I was personally interested in and felt equipped, and that I wanted to, help expand our content into that. into that space. And then, we started the Betches Sup, which is our news and politics vertical, in 2015. And I'm sure remember the energy of 2015 when sort of celebrity and news started to combine very strongly. And that's always how we've seen it. And we just felt that it was such an important time to get involved politically. We felt that we, had built enough trust with our audience by that time that they could see us, that they could come to us in the news and politics space and would, be open and receptive to that from us. And I mean, I think our audience was craving it at that time. When you look at the political climate in 2015, 2016, it really changed drastically.
And also in 2022 with the midterm elections after the overturning of Roe v. Wade. I mean, you really mobilized the sub community then. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that the decision was leaked a month early definitely served to help us from an organizing and a content standpoint really plan for when that decision would ultimately drop shortly after. So we had really had our plans to mobilize. We did a fundraiser where we raised over $100,000 for Planned Parenthood, and we created a campaign on the Betches Sup, which actually ended up winning a Shorty Award in human rights. So, we were really this is something that we know our audience is super passionate about. So we were really, very much on top of that from the very beginning, especially being a primarily, female audience.
And unfortunately, in comedy, women aren't always taken seriously. And in the beginning, Betches was kind of labeled as mean spirited by some people. Having been in the industry for a decade now, do you feel that the comedy space is shifting?
I mean, I would say that in certain spaces it is not shifting. I think you definitely still have sort of like mean misogynist comedy, which we definitely have worked hard to get away from. That is like not, who we are or what we're wanting to put out there into the world anymore. Um, I think that those spaces still exist, but I actually think that there's been a new space created for more positive, more inclusive comedy that, touches more different communities and shares more unique, diverse views and is still extremely funny. So I think that ultimately, while, kind of mean-spirited comedy, I don't know if that's ever going to like go away. I think the really good thing is that there's now space and channels and a demand for other types of comedy, which is a really, really good thing.
Yeah, and a big part of the brand is the hilarious memes that you use. I love that you inform people while still making them laugh. Why did you decide to use memes as a tool in doing that?
Well, I mean, I think it's how people consume information. I think it's partially a result of the way that social media platforms are basically like pushing content to their users. We find that it's a way to draw people in. It's a way to be funny and feel universal. So ultimately, it really, it's a combination of sort of reacting to social media platforms where our audiences are spending their time and finding it an effective way to convey information and entertain people at the same time.
And you're having so many important conversations through your platform. Is there anything else personally that you're passionate about advocating for?
One thing that is constantly on my mind is the sort of overarching question of American democracy. And, obviously it's not a uniquely American question or problem, but I think that, so many of these conversations that we take for granted that they're being had with the backdrop of a democratic system of governing. And, when you think about how that practically plays out in voting rights, trying to states where they're trying to make it harder for marginalized communities to have access to voting. These are really issues that the issue of democracy and how strong our democracy is really something that underlies all of the other issues, because you can really only have a conversation about women's rights or racial equity or climate change or any other conversation when you're doing that in, a democratic society. And I think that sort of gets taken for granted, and it's hard for us to have the right vocabulary for what it would mean to live without that. But so that is something that I do feel really strongly about talking about and trying to find the words to describe sort of something that's a bit nebulous and taken for granted.
Well, congratulations on all of your success. Thank you so much for talking with us today, Sami.
Thank you so much, Sonia. It's great to meet you.
I'm Sonia Baghdadi. Thanks for watching and advocating. For more stories and content like this, visit advocate.com and advocatechannel.com.